Well, Tennessee gets sweet, sweet revenge against LSU. The Volunteers tackle LSU on the basketball court. A much-needed win for the Tennessee basketball team. Mike Wilson will stop by. We'll recap Tennessee and LSU, plus some notes from Junior Day for Tennessee football and the one official visitor who was on campus this week. All that and more here on a Monday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Monday edition of Locked On Vols. I am your host, Eric Cain. Glad to have you guys along for the ride. Today's episode is brought to you by Sonos. You can experience the game like never before with Sonos Arc, the premium smart soundbar for TV, movies, music, gaming, and much more. Visit Sonos.com to learn more. Appreciate you guys listening, making Locked On Vols your first listen. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey, wherever you get your podcasts. And for those of you guys who have subscribed and may be watching on YouTube, can't thank you enough. Do want to pat you guys on the back a little bit. Over 130 subscribers, just a couple of days making that YouTube channel live. Can't thank you guys enough for that. Over 200 views on both the first two episodes we put on YouTube. Need to continue to get those numbers up, but thank you so much for your hard work. If you haven't already, just search Locked On Vols on YouTube, subscribe, and it's there if you need it. But even if you don't check out YouTube, go ahead and subscribe anyway. That will help us out an awful lot. So, again, sweet revenge for the Tennessee basketball team. Mike Wilson of Knox News Sentinel will catch up with us here in just a couple of minutes, and he has a lot of good stuff to say on this game. But, hey, the Volunteers 64, LSU 50, and with just a couple minutes left, I mean, it was a 20-point game there for a while, and 19 points was the largest lead for Tennessee basketball at the 140 mark over LSU. But this is a game where Tennessee jumped out with a flurry of made baskets there to begin the game. Had a scoring run of 14. That was the longest scoring run for Tennessee. That was the 14:02 minute mark, jumped out to an 11:0, 13:0 lead to begin the game, 14:0 lead likely with this scoring run. And it was about a picture-perfect start to this basketball game. But LSU, you knew, would make a run. You knew LSU would come back. It did make a run about midway through that first half, scoring run of 8 to bring the deficits, just to single digits at the 9:19 mark of that first half. But credit the Volunteers. Tennessee shot 40% from the field in the first half, made 7 of 17 for three-pointers, a 41% clip, and was able to lead LSU by a score of 29-24. Withstood that rally, but to lead by 5 at the halftime break. Going into the second half, Tennessee jumps out late in that second half, puts the game away, outscores LSU 35-26 in the second half, and of course cruises in the end to a 64-50 final score. Will Wade, what can you say? All right, I was actually over covering the Junior Day over in the Anderson Training Facility when this game was going on. A lot of these Junior Day attendees were over there watching the basketball game as well, and we'll talk more on that in segment 3. But I was watching the game on the laptop, and I mean, I've said this before. I think I said this. I can't remember if it was on this podcast or might have been on the radio show, but I can't think of anybody that is like universally hated the way Will Wade is. I mean, I really don't, because you've got a guy, the FBI chants, just the arrogance, a guy that's just so easy to hate, right? I mean, just the personality wise, and just seeing his antics against Alabama, seeing his post-game comments that the television broadcast, showed a million times, it seemed like, during the broadcast the other night, seeing what he did on the court, heading to halftime, sitting down, banging his head against the scorer's table. I mean, what are you doing, man? You're a complete joke. You're a good coach. I mean, you are. How you still have a job, God only knows, right? I mean, literally, how you have a job. And that's what makes this whole football thing with Jeremy Pruitt so frustrating is, Tennessee goes above and beyond, investigating to, going 200 feet under, investigating under every single rock and crevice in this program. Yet Will Wade is still coaching basketball. Bruce Pearl at Auburn is still coaching basketball. Right, wrong, indifference. You may feel different than I do, or you may disagree with what I'm about to say, but the difference between Bruce Pearl and Will Wade is I think everybody would go to battle for Bruce Pearl, right? And everybody would let Will Wade just kind of ride off into the sunset. So very much liked is Bruce Pearl, even by a lot of Tennessee fans. And there's some Tennessee fans that just love to hate any former coach, and that's fine. But a lot of Tennessee fans still love Bruce Pearl. And I think Bruce Pearl is universally liked around the SEC in college basketball, whereas Will Wade is not. But enough with that. I mean, Will Wade, just an embarrassment, man, right? And something that Mike will touch on when we bring him onto the show here in just a moment, but I do want to bring up here because I think it's a very important thing to discuss. So many times this season, and even in SEC play, Tennessee's just looked weak. Tennessee's looked weak. Tennessee's looked just non-physical. And the last couple of games, you're getting that physicality from the team. You're seeing the quote-unquote, let me puff my chest out there a little bit from Uros Plavsic and Santiago Vescovi. And Saturday was no different. Saturday, it looked like Tennessee was the tougher basketball team. And that was really good to see. That was a welcoming feeling for Tennessee fans to see this team kind of go to work that way. So I did want to point that out there. Now, LSU, of course, shorthanded. Pinson did not play in this basketball game. He is a really, really good player. Of course, you had Eason coming off the bench that is really, really good. He ended up having 5 fouls and fouling out in this basketball game. Only finished with 16 points. I say only 16 points and 6 boards. It's better than 24 and 12, right? That's what he had the first go around in 28 minutes back on January the 8th. But Tennessee able to minimize, able to, kind of crutch the short rotation for LSU. 15 points from Murray, 10 points from Gaines. That was, and then, of course, 16 from Easton. That's about all the offense that LSU had. LSU came in the #1 defense in the country for adjusted defensive efficiency per KenPom. Tennessee, #5 in the country. LSU held to 38% shooting in this game, 4 of 19 from 3, just 21%. 57% from the line. Overall, Tennessee, 43%, matching that 40 and 45 percentiles from the field in the first and second half. Tennessee made 10 to 28 three-pointers for 35%. Again, Tennessee shot much, much worse from 3. And, of course, Tennessee's going back. Had such a great free throw shooting day against Vanderbilt on the road back on Tuesday of last week. And kind of resulting back to its old ways. Only made 10 of 18, 55% from the charity stripe, but it didn't matter in this one. Tennessee was the better team. And Santiago Vescovi, he is so consistent. He is Tennessee's most consistent player. You know what you're going to get from him every single time. He's going to shoot a lot. He's going to shoot threes. 5 of 11 from the field. 5 of 11 from downtown, led the way with 16 points, and he had 6 boards. 12 points from Uros Plavsic, who continues to be Tennessee's most consistent front court player. 12 points, 6 rebounds, 5 of 7 shooting from the field. John Fulkerson off the bench, played 14 minutes and some change, looked a whole lot better. 3 of 3 from the field, finished with 8 points, only had 1 rebound, but he looked a lot more confident. He looked a lot better offensively than we've seen him in quite some time. Kennedy Chandler finished with 9 points. He did have 6 assists. I think that was noteworthy. Not the best shooting day for him, 4 of 13 from the field and 1 of 5 from downtown. But, for Tennessee, he got 9 from Chandler. And then again, you got 9 from Josiah Jordan-James, who came back, played in this basketball game, played 24 minutes, 2 of 6 shooting, 9 points, and he had 6 boards as well. So Tennessee looked good, had points coming from different players, shot at higher percentage, took good shots, but most of all, played with a toughness about them. I mean, there was a couple of spats pregame and all that. A lot of these you could do without, but I think it's important at times for Tennessee to look that way, to act that way, and Uros Plavsic just continues to lead that charge. So where's Olivier Cumwa? He's continued to just disappear almost. Played 16 minutes, no points, only had 4 rebounds. But as long as Uros Plavsic has given you what he is offensively, Tennessee will take it, and Tennessee needed this win in the worst way. It was at home. It was against a ranked opponent. It was against a team that just kind of embarrassed you at times just 2 weeks prior. This was a really, really good win for Tennessee, so I think the Volunteers will take that in a heartbeat. Lady Vols were in action on Sunday as well. It was a 5-13 matchup. Tennessee on the road in Athens against Georgia, taking down the Bulldogs 63 to 55. A really strong third quarter, outscoring Georgia by 6 points, 21 to 15 in that frame. Outscored them in the fourth quarter as well after falling behind initially in the first quarter of play. Tennessee, not the best shooting game overall, 39%. From the field in this one. Didn't shoot very good free throws either. Georgia wasn't much better, but Tennessee able to, a shorthanded Tennessee club, missing a starter and, had a couple others banged up in this game as well. Got 19 points from Jordan Horston, who played 36 minutes, 13 points from Ray Burrell, who played 34 minutes back in the starting lineup. So that was huge for this Lady Vols club. And of course, Tamari Key, 8 points. She had 5 blocks, a 4 board. She continues to do a little bit of everything. This Tennessee Lady Vols team, 18-1 on the season, undefeated in SEC play. It's going to get more challenging. You look at that stretch, especially how the Lady Vols end the regular season. Boy, it is not for the weak-minded, because it is a tough stretch. So it's going to get tougher for the Lady Vols, but they just continue to win up to number 5. We'll see if the Lady Vols move up when the AP poll comes out. So good wins for Tennessee over LSU, for the Lady Vols over Georgia, and they'll get back in Knoxville and prepare for some midweek contest here later in the week. Mike Wilson of Knox News, he'll stop by here in segment number 2. But first, you guys know this podcast, Locked On Vols. You know me, I'm Eric Cain, and you know about this incredible app that I've been telling you guys about. It's called Get Upside. It's incredible for everyone who buys gas, all right? You need to know about it, because my listeners right now are making up to 25 cents for every gallon of gas every time they fill up. Just download the free Get Upside app in the App Store and in Google Play right now. Use the promo code SCORE, and you're going to get a 25 cents per gallon on your first fill up. That's up to 50 cents cash back. Don't pay full price at the pump anymore. Get cash back using Get Upside. Just download the app for free or use the promo code SCORE and get up to 50 cents a gallon cash back on your first tank. Some people who drive a lot are making as much as $200 to $300 a month in cash back, and there's no catch. The cash back gets added right to your bank account. You can cash out at any time using your bank account, PayPal, e-gift card, Amazon, and other brands. Just download the free Get Upside app and use the promo code SCORE to get up to 50 cents a gallon cash back on your first tank. That is promo code SCORE at Get Upside. We'll go back into a Monday edition of Locked On Vols, and pleased to welcome our good buddy Mike Wilson onto the show. Mike Wilson of the Knox News Sentinel. Mike, what's going on, man?
Not much. Just enjoying rolling through basketball season here, right about the midpoint, and we got baseball and football coming up again soon. So it's a fun time of year right here, I think.
Yeah, we'll definitely get you on to talk baseball when Tennessee baseball gets here, but you're kind of my go-to basketball guy, and certainly a major win for Tennessee basketball over the weekend against LSU. It is never a dull moment when a Tennessee team coaches or goes up against a Will Wade coached basketball team. So there were a lot of theatrics, a lot of emotions, but at the end of the day, Tennessee gets a win, and Tennessee got a win that it needed to at home. Your biggest takeaways from that basketball game over the weekend?
Yeah, I think what was so interesting to me was how different Tennessee looked than they did 2 weeks ago at LSU. Just not even offensively, defensively, but in attitude. This was a team that I thought really got punked by LSU down there, out-toughed, out-willed, out-hustled, all of it kind of rolled into one. And this time Tennessee was the aggressor. They were the ones who really enforced their will onto LSU. And that's not really something we've seen this team do a great job of on a consistent basis anyway. So that was the biggest thing I saw. I mean, obviously the defense was really good, holding LSU to 50 points after giving up 79 down there. Santiago Vescovi continues being an all-SEC type guy. But biggest thing to me now is, how do you bottle that intensity? How do you keep that going, especially in road games where Tennessee really hasn't been the same team that they've been at home?
Yeah, it's a good point, especially when you bring up Santiago Vescovi against LSU, 5 of 11, all 3-pointers, but finishing with 16 points. He made one of his 2 free throws. Is it safe to say, like, this team's going to go maybe as far as Santi takes this team? Because anytime the team plays well, he is front and center and usually leading the charge.
I think the way I look at Santi is, you just know he's going to be consistent. Yeah. He's the guy in this team, you know what you're going to get. But I think the guys who are going to dictate the ultimate success of this team are Kennedy Chandler and everyone in the post. Before the year, I would have said John Fulkerson, but at this point, Uros Plavsic is their best post player. But I really think you kind of know you're going to get 15 to 20 from Santiago Vescovi on every game, every night, no matter what it seems like. But if Kennedy Chandler really starts to piece together some consistency and Tennessee can count on what it's going to get in the post, that to me is going to have a big say in how far this team can go and how many games they're going to win.
A little sidebar here. Has anything changed with Kennedy Chandler in terms of his projections for the 2022 NBA draft?
Honestly, I haven't looked at the mock drafts at this point. Probably should start paying attention to that sometime in the near future. But my assumption would still be that he's a projected first rounder. But yeah, you haven't quite seen the same consistency through SEC play, which obviously is more competitive, a lot of better teams. You can't beat up on the cupcake teams you see in the non-conference. So he just hasn't quite looked the same. And that's just an adjustment thing. I think the last 2 games, he's been really good defensively. He's doing a good job passing the ball, but he's not quite scoring in the same ways that I think he was early in the year, but still a lot of games left.
Chatting with Mike Wilson here of the Knox News Sentinel. And Mike, you mentioned him a moment ago. It's hard not to mention him right now when you're talking Tennessee basketball. He is kind of taking on that role that it's not the same. They're not the same players. I think Fulkerson did so much more, but kind of like what Fulkerson did that back half of the schedule and 2 seasons ago. Look at Uros here in SEC play so far. He is Tennessee's best post player right now, at least most consistent. Scored another 12 points against LSU, 6 rebounds. I feel like it's important that we slow the roll and still realize who he is as a player. But Uros Plavsic, in terms of production and that emotional leader, he's everything Tennessee's kind of counting on right now. Isn't that right?
If you told me before the year that in January, Uros Plavsic would be Tennessee's best post player, I would have said the same things I'm saying now. That's incredible, and that's concerning at the same time.
Yeah.
Because of what it says, both about Uros is why it's so positive. The way that he's developed, the way that Rick Barnes has talked about in the last 2 to 3 weeks, he's really figured it out. And you see now why Rick Barnes continued playing Uros when it seemed to make no sense early in the season. You see what Rick Barnes saw that we didn't see in games as media members and everyone else watching. On the other hand, what it says about John Fulkerson and Olivier Kamwa is concerning to me because John Fulkerson just has not been consistent. He was better yesterday. I think he had 8 points, broke the 1,000-point mark in his career, looked a little bit better. But Olivier has been a non-factor for about 2 weeks after a really good 2 weeks. So those guys need to really pull it together because right now you do kind of expect that you're getting 10 to 12 points, 5 to 8 rebounds from Uros Plavsic, which is great. And you also mentioned maybe the biggest thing he brings, which is just this fire onto the court. He's kind of a wild card emotionally. Like I think it's a give and a take. But man, he just brings this attitude onto the court that Tennessee as a team has really lacked. And that's really something they need.
Yeah, I think you said it best. Sometimes you'll take it. A lot of times you'll leave it. A lot of times I'm sitting there watching, I'm saying, dude, just chill. Like no one cares. But sometimes, obviously, that's what this team needs. Him and Santi both kind of getting up there, getting into some scuffles. You don't want it to be an everyday thing, kind of like what it's turned into here lately. But I do think that's important with the team. You mentioned a couple of the post players. Let me ask you about one more. Brandon Huntley-Hatfield, his role continues to grow. His minutes continue to increase. Not really a whole lot from the points production, but, got some rebounds again on yesterday. Where do you see him in terms of his production and his development here with this team?
Yeah, and I'll say one thing on the Santi Uros thing too. The way that I thought Tennessee got handled at LSU just looked like they are tougher and they know they're tougher than Tennessee. Yesterday, it looked like Tennessee said, we're not going to take that anymore. No. There was definitely a chippier attitude from especially Uros and Santi, and that's a welcome sight, I think, from a team that's allowed itself to get bullied a little bit, especially by LSU through the past few seasons. As far as Brandon Huntley-Hatfield goes, he has seen that uptick in minutes after maybe having 2 to 3 in probably 4 or 5 games, December, January. He's just hustling. He's getting after the ball. He's doing the little things that he wasn't necessarily doing. His offensive game is kind of what he was known for, but right now his best offense is getting a rebound and tipping it in. He did that late in the first half yesterday. That's kind of a good way for him to get points right now because it means he has to rebound and go get the ball for himself. So I think his development's very interesting. That can certainly help Tennessee. I would still kind of consider him probably that 4th post player right now, although it seems like Rick Barnes is pretty content to go platoon. He starts Olivier and Uros, then subs in Fulkerson and Brandon Huntley-Hatfield at the same time, then flips back. So
last thing I got for you, Mike, you move past into this next phase of the schedule. You'll split 2 at home, 2 on the road here in the next 4, hosting Florida this week, then traveling for the Big 12 SEC Challenge to Texas. I think that will be a game that we all talk about, of course, from the Rick Barnes perspective. A&M back in Knoxville, and then Columbia, South Carolina next week for some more SEC action. This next stretch that you see the Gators, you see the Longhorns, the Aggies, the Gamecocks, the Bulldogs, the Commodores, and of course the Wildcats again coming up here in SEC play.
It's really nice for Tennessee, I think is what it looks like. Tennessee's schedule, I think it's been overreacted to probably by everyone, including myself. That Tennessee's past month has been brutal. They've played 5 ranked teams in their last 8 games, Arizona, Alabama, LSU twice, and Kentucky. So they've been playing really good teams, and those are the teams they've lost to other than the LSU Arizona wins to bookend that stretch. Only 2 of their next 9 games are against teams that are currently ranked, which includes Texas, which is 22 in the coaches poll. So they're barely in it still. So Tennessee has a nice month of February coming before they get Auburn at Thompson Bowling Arena. I think March 4th is that game. So this is a stretch here where Tennessee can potentially, go 8-1, 7-2, and really, really improve their outlook for the season, the postseason. And I think too, it gives them a chance to iron out some of those things that have been problematic. I thought Rick Barnes had a great comment last night saying that when they were scouting for Oregon State last year in the NCAA tournament, the team they saw at the start of the year on film and the team they saw at the end were completely different. And the difference was Oregon State was making shots consistently at the end of the year. And he expects Tennessee to kind of follow that same path. So it's a good time to figure that out right now.
He is at by Mike Wilson on Twitter. Mike, what kind of work should we have to look forward to for you this week?
Might have a couple things up the sleeve coming down here. The Texas matchup is interesting, certainly brings some storylines. So got to be working on those things all the time. So looking forward to getting down there and doing some fun stuff with that.
Always give him a follow on Twitter. Check out his work. Mike, thanks so much for being the Hoops go-to guy here for the show.
Always, man. Love coming on.
All right, that is Mike Wilson. Go ahead and give him a follow. Like I said, he does fantastic work. And Mike, a big, big fan of BetOnline. It is the number one spot for all your betting, sports wagering, all that type of action here for 2022. And of course, BetOnline liking to wish you a happy new year as we continue our march throughout the playoffs and beyond. New year, new updated desktop and mobile website, and you can sign up today to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. All you need to do is use that promo code Locked On to get started. From football, basketball, hockey, boxing, UFC, right to your favorite Las Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all these amazing offers available for the 2022 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, it is where the game starts, and it's a new year, New Year's resolutions maybe for you, maybe for me. If that's what you're all about, then you need to put Built Bars in your plan, okay? Built Bar is a protein bar, but it tastes like a candy bar, maybe even better than a candy bar because it's something you could stick to your New Year's resolution with because it tastes so good. It doesn't taste like some protein bars that are chalky and waxy or sometimes even tastes like a chemical spill. But if you want to eat healthy, sometimes it gets just so boring by week 2 or week 3. You're saying, where's the chocolate? Well, with Built Bar, it's covered in 100% chocolate, but it's only got about 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, 17 grams of protein. And you compare that to a candy bar, you got around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. All right, so Built, where can you find it? It's at Built.com. When you're there, use the promo code LOCK15, and you're going to get a 15% welcome bonus. All right, use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off. That is at Built.com. We'll go back into a final segment of Locked On Vols here on a Monday. I'm your host, Eric Cain. Thank you guys for hanging out, making Locked On Vols your first listen. And now you can watch it every single morning at 9 a.m. It premieres live on YouTube, but of course you can watch it throughout the day whenever. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. That'd help me out an awful lot. And in the midst of this Monday show, almost forgot to remind you guys, Twitter Tuesday's coming up. Tomorrow we'll take your questions and we will answer them. We'll take your content, your concerns, your remarks. We will air them here on Locked On Vols. So get at me at _Cainer on Twitter and at Locked On Vols if you want to take part in Twitter Tuesday. I got a couple of you guys that do it every single week. Can't thank you enough. Others, anything you got at _Cainer, at Locked On Vols, DM me or tweet me for Twitter Tuesday. So a couple of things with football, a little bit in recruiting, and a couple of things just to announce here in this final segment. On Friday's show, we talked Isaiah Nair and his decommitment, really his flip from Tennessee over to Texas and how that was disappointing. I also said that rumors were flying, and then there was an Instagram story that we needed to pay attention to of Jeremy Banks. And a little sidebar real quick, I was listening back, air checking myself after that Friday show, and I mean, I just thought to myself, boy, we are in the time where we got to read into Snapchat stories, Instagram stories, tweets. What a time to be alive, right? But nonetheless, Jeremy Banks put out an Instagram story at about 9:30, 10 o'clock on Friday morning saying, I honestly believe that I'm the fastest and most athletic linebacker in the 2022 NFL draft class. Check my stats for productivity and yada, yada. It was since deleted, and I mentioned or this was on Thursday morning, excuse me. But we talked about it, and I wanted to warn you guys just in case something happened that over the weekend that it was announced that he had filed for the NFL draft. That cutoff was due on Monday night at midnight, and there were rumors flying that he would potentially enter the NFL draft. So I wanted to mention that to you just in case. Over the weekend, check that list was announced. The general managers for the National Football League got the list of underclassmen who declared. Jeremy Banks was not on that list, so that's a good sign. But as someone, around the program told me over the weekend, anything that happens with Jeremy Banks wouldn't shock me. So you never know. Don't want to say he's on transfer portal watch, but you just never know with Jeremy Banks. But it was a good sign that he did not declare. I think that would have been some really, really horrible advice that he had received if that was the case. But he did not. He did not fill out his paperwork. He did not declare for the NFL draft. So Jeremy Banks still a part of the team, and that is really, really good news for right now because Tennessee's defense needs Jeremy Banks in 2022. All right, so over the weekend, while the game was going on against LSU inside Thompson-Boling Arena, Tennessee had a junior day where it hosted dozens and dozens of underclassmen, rising sophomores, rising juniors, and some rising seniors on campus for a recruiting day. And what a junior day is you bring in a ton of prospects all at one time, their families, you break them up into groups, you take them tour the facilities, tour the stadium, get some academic lessons in terms of what will life be like for a student athlete. Now you can get lessons on name, image, and likeness. Tennessee, of course, doesn't set those up, but they're there to educate on the tax purposes and the write-offs and all that type of stuff. So it's a very educational day for prospects. And we were over there talking, and if you're a subscriber at VolQuest.com, we'll have tons and tons and tons and more tons of recruiting content coming up from this junior day over the next week to week and a half before there's another one on March 5th. So but a couple of the headliners that were at this junior day, Ethan Davis and Jack Luttrell, those are two Tennessee football commits for the class of 2023. Ethan Davis, a 4-star tight end. Jack Luttrell, a 3-star athlete. He'll play defensive back here, but he's a really good wide receiver as well. Those two guys were on campus at the junior day. Carnell Tate, a 4-star wide receiver who attends IMG Academy. He was in town taking part in the junior day. Aiden Bussell, who is Tennessee's top offensive line target, in-state offensive line target, a guy that I think that Tennessee's in really, really good shape with. He was on campus again. Talked to him and his family. Such a good kid. 4-star, really, really likes the makeup of what Tennessee is, and or 3-star rather by rivals, but he is a good-looking prospect. He was on campus over the weekend. You had Grayson Howard, who is an athlete, can play the Leo spot, can play inside, about 6'2", 215, good-looking kid, class of 2023 as well as Grayson Howard. He is from Andrew Jackson High School in Jacksonville, Florida. He was on campus and liked what was going on around Tennessee. Bryson Sanders from Baylor School, an offensive lineman, another in-state target for Tennessee. Trevor Duncan from nearby Knoxville Catholic High School was on campus. Anytime you get this local talent, you want to get him in, and Tennessee certainly has interest in Trevor Duncan. Ethan Nation, who is a really, really good prospect. I had a chance to talk with him. I have a story on him coming up. He is a cornerback, got over about 45 offers from Roswell, Georgia, class of 2023. He was on campus. Whit Weeks, whose older brother goes to, I believe it's LSU, but he's an athlete, class of 2023 from Watkinsville, Georgia, 3-star. He was on campus. So I'm just going through the list here and just naming off some names of guys that, were here that you might have heard of if you follow recruiting. Christopher Vizina, I believe is how you say his name. I cover recruiting, and I still don't know how to say his name, but outside of the Cali quarterback, Nico, he is Tennessee's quarterback target in this class. A 4-star rated pro-style quarterback from Birmingham, Alabama, where he attends Briarwood Christian. He was on campus for the second time, and we have a story up on him right now at VolQuest.com. A couple of other kids, Cameron Sparks was on campus. Paris Patterson, who's an offensive lineman from East St. Louis, where Jamonte Spraggins comes from, he was on campus. Vic Burley, who is a priority target for sure for Tennessee. 4-star, top 50 player in the entire country. He is a, kind of a defensive end, looking like a 5 technique in this defense. He was on campus. We have something up on him right now. So anyway, the list goes on and on, but those are some of the top prospects who were on campus for Tennessee over in this junior day. One official visitor was on campus for Tennessee this week. It was James Pierce, that Leo from Charlotte, North Carolina. He signed with Tennessee back in December, but just now took his official visit. Josh Heupel was in-house for his official visit with him earlier this week, and then he came on campus over the weekend. Talked to him on Sunday. Really enjoyed his time. He will not be an early enrollee, but he will be in high school this fall, but he plans to be with Tennessee over the summer moving forward. Tennessee will have Jason Jenkins, a defensive lineman from New Jersey right now. I think he's the only scheduled official visitor for Tennessee. He's supposed to be on campus next weekend. Of course, that can always change, but Tennessee will have one more time to host official visitors next weekend. Then the dead period will happen. Then that following week, you'll have the February signing period take place, and then there'll be another junior day on March the 5th next month. So a little insight into the recruiting world of what's going on. All right, good Monday show, guys. Thanks so much. Appreciate Mike Wilson for stopping by and hanging out with us, talking a little Tennessee hoops there in segment number 2. And of course, thank you guys so much for making Locked On Vols your first listen. Don't forget, Twitter Tuesday is tomorrow. Get me in your questions, your comments, your concerns at _Cainer and at Locked On Vols. DMs are open. Tweet me. We will bring them onto the show tomorrow. Guys, YouTube's there. If you haven't already, please subscribe. The numbers are looking great. You guys are doing fantastic work there. If you haven't already, it's never too late. Search Locked On Vols at YouTube. Please subscribe. That will help out this podcast an awful lot. And check out Locked On SEC and Locked On Bets. Locked On Bets with your boy Q and handicapping expert Lee Sterling, your one-stop shop for all your sports wagering needs. That's there. It's a great resource if you guys are into the numbers like I am throughout the week. And then Locked On SEC with Chris Gordy. He's getting on some great guests throughout the week. A lot of active football players. I don't know, who's supplying the money for that, but hey, he's getting it. Check it out. A lot of SEC talent joining his show. That is Locked On SEC every single week. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Can't wait for Twitter Tuesday tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your Monday, everybody.